The notary's office smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper, and my mother's voice was still ringing in my ear from 20 minutes earlier. "Stop fighting what's legal, Elise." I had the trust amendment folded in my purse, the one with my signature slanted across the bottom like a bad imitation of my own hand. Across from me, the notary adjusted her glasses, looked at the page, then looked at my driver's license, and her face changed so completely that my stomach went cold. "Honey," she said quietly, "who brought your ID in that day?" "My name is Elise Warren. I'm 33 years old. That was the first moment I understood my family hadn't just lied about my grandfather's trust. They had staged me inside a room I had never entered. 2 hours before that, I had been standing in my parents' dining room with 13 relatives watching me be treated like a greedy stranger. It was supposed to be a simple family lunch, which was how my mother, Linda Warren, described every meeting where she planned to corner someone. The good china was out. The roast was carved. My sister, Kendra Voss, had arrived in white linen pants and a gold bracelet I had never seen before, tapping her nails against a folder like she was waiting for applause. My father, Gerald, wouldn't look at me. That should have warned me. Kendra waited until coffee was poured before she slid the folder across the table. "Since everyone keeps asking about Grandpa's estate," she said, though no one had asked, "Mom thought it would be better to clear the air." My uncle frowned. My cousin stopped chewing. I opened the folder and saw my grandfather's trust papers, or at least what looked like them. There were highlighted sections, sticky notes, a photocopy of a notarized amendment dated 11 months before he died. The amendment removed me as co-beneficiary of his investment trust and named Kendra as sole beneficiary. Below it was my signature. Not close, not perfect, but close enough to insult me. I stared at the page, and for 1 second the room went so silent I could hear the ice in my aunt's glass crack. "That isn't my signature," I said. My mother sighed before I had even finished speaking, not shocked, not confused, tired, like I had spilled wine on the tablecloth. "Elise," she said, "don't do this." "Don't do what?" "Make Grandpa's wishes ugly." Kendra leaned back with a soft little smile, one hand resting on her stomach like she was posing for a magazine about calm women with money. "He wanted me to have it. You know how close we were." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because for the last 4 years of my grandfather's life, I was the one who took him to cardiology appointments. I was the one who changed the batteries in his hearing aids, filled his pill organizer, bought the cinnamon gum he kept in his jacket pocket. Kendra visited twice a year and called him Gramps in a baby voice that made him wince when she wanted something. But at that table, history had already been edited. My mother tapped the paper with one manicured finger. "It's notarized." As if that ended blood, memory, and common sense. I looked at my father. "Dad?" He rubbed his thumb over his wedding ring and stared at the gravy boat. "Your mother and I think it's best if you accept this gracefully." Gracefully. That word landed harder than if he had yelled, because in my family, graceful meant quiet. It meant eating the smaller piece, taking the worse bedroom, paying the bill before anyone noticed, smiling when Kendra got credit for things I had done. Graceful was the ribbon they tied around my throat. Kendra opened her phone and, with the kind of cruelty that pretends it's excitement, showed my aunt a photo of a house, white brick, black shutters, big porch. "We're putting in an offer this week," she said, "assuming Elise doesn't drag this out." My mother's cheeks tightened. "She won't." Everyone looked at me then. Not with concern, with expectation. Like my pain was a scheduling problem. I picked up the amendment again and forced myself to study it instead of throwing it in my sister's face. The notary stamp was from a woman named Vivian Cole in Brookhaven, a small town 40 minutes away. The witness line had my mother's signature. The ID type listed was my driver's license. My license. The one I had lost for 3 days that same winter and found later in my mother's kitchen drawer under a stack of takeout menus. I remembered asking why it was there. Mom had said, "You're always leaving things around." I felt the room tilt, but I kept my voice level. "I'm going to call the notary." Kendra's smile flickered. My mother stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "There is no reason to harass some poor woman because you're disappointed." "Then she can confirm it." "She already did. That's what notarized means." My father finally looked up. His eyes were flat and pleading at the same time. "Elise, please, don't embarrass the family." And there it was. Not "don't let us hurt you. Don't let people see it." I folded the copy slowly and put it in my purse. My hands were shaking, but I made sure no one saw. Kendra's voice followed me as I walked to the door. "You can't undo legal paperwork just because your feelings are hurt." I turned around. For the first time all afternoon, she looked nervous. "I'm not trying to undo my feelings," I said. "I'm trying to find out who pretended to be me." No one answered. Not my mother. Not my father. Not even Kendra, who had already picked out curtains for a house bought with money she kept calling hers. I drove to Brookhaven with the windows cracked even though it was raining, because I couldn't breathe inside my own car. Every mile brought back another small thing I had ignored. My mother asking for a copy of my license for emergency records. Kendra suddenly knowing details about Grandpa's accounts. Dad changing the subject whenever I mentioned the trust. By the time I reached Vivian Cole's office, the paper in my purse felt alive. Vivian was in her late 60s, with silver hair pinned neatly and a cardigan buttoned all the way up. At first she was polite in that careful business way. Then I showed her the amendment. Then I showed her my license, and then she asked who had brought my ID. I said, "No one. I wasn't here." Her hand went to her throat. Behind her desk, on a shelf crowded with stamp pads and file boxes, sat a framed photo of her grandchildren in Halloween costumes. She looked at it like she needed something innocent to steady herself. "I remember this appointment," she whispered. My pulse hammered in my ears. She pulled open a drawer and took out a black appointment ledger, the kind with actual paper pages. Her finger moved down the column for that date. Then she stopped. "Oh, Lord," she said. And before I could ask what she saw, she turned the book toward me. In Vivian Cole's ledger, on the line for 2:15 p.m., my name was written in blue ink, Elise Warren, Trust Amendment. But beside it, in the notes column, Vivian had written something that made the room narrow around me. Brought by Linda W. Daughter Quiet. ID presented by Mother, Daughter Quiet. I touched the edge of the ledger. "You wrote that?" Vivian nodded slowly, her face pale. "I make notes when something feels off. Not accusations. Just reminders." "Did you notarize my signature?" "I notarized a signature from a young woman who was presented to me as you." My mouth went dry. "Young woman?" Vivian swallowed. "Brown hair, similar build. She kept her sunglasses on at first. Your mother said she'd had an eye procedure." I almost sat down without meaning to. My sister, Kendra, had brown hair then. She'd been recovering from nothing, but she owned 3 pairs of oversized designer sunglasses and wore them indoors when she wanted people to notice her. Vivian continued, voice trembling. "I asked her to remove them. She did, briefly. I compared the license photo. It was close enough, and your mother was doing most of the talking." "My mother brought my ID." "Yes, and the woman signed as me." Vivian looked ashamed. "Yes." I stared at the forged signature, suddenly seeing the hesitation in it, the careful copying, the way the E looked practiced, but the W fell apart. "Was my father there?" Vivian checked the ledger again. "No, only your mother, the signer, and another woman who waited by the door." "Another woman?" She had blonde hair, expensive coat, impatient. Kendra's best friend, Tessa, worked in real estate and had once told me laws were mostly about confidence. I laughed once, a hard sound that startled both of us. Vivian reached across the desk. "Ms. Warren, I need to tell you something. If you weren't here, this is serious, very serious." My family is telling everyone it's legal. A notarization can be challenged. Fraud voids plenty. Fraud. The word sounded official enough to hold on to. Vivian stood and went to a filing cabinet. I keep copies of my notary journal pages and thumbprint records. Thumbprints? For estate documents, yes, I require them. Some notaries don't, but I do. For the first time all day, something like air entered my lungs. She laid another book on the desk, heavier than the first. She flipped to the date and turned it toward me. There, next to my forged name, was a thumbprint, not mine. I knew my own hands. My print wouldn't prove itself to my eyes, but the person who had pressed ink there had long, manicured nails. The smudge showed a crescent mark at the edge, like acrylic had dragged through it. Kendra always wore acrylics. Vivian copied the page, her movements sharper now, angry at herself. I'll write a sworn statement. Today. I blinked at her. You'd do that? I should have refused the appointment. Her voice cracked. Your mother rushed me. Said your grandfather was declining, said the family needed peace. I let sympathy make me careless. My phone buzzed in my purse. Mom, then Dad, then Kendra. 3 missed calls in under a minute. Vivian saw my face. Don't answer yet. But a text appeared from my mother before I could stop looking. Come back to the house. We need to discuss your behavior. A second text followed. Do not contact that notary again. I held up the phone. Vivian's expression hardened. Screenshot that. I did. Then Kendra texted. You're making yourself look unstable. Everyone saw you storm out. There it was again, the setup. If I objected, I was emotional. If I asked questions, unstable. If I found evidence, cruel. I typed back one sentence. Did you go to Brookhaven with Mom on February 12th? The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then my mother called. This time I answered and put it on speaker. Elise, Mom said, voice low and sharp. Where are you? At Vivian Cole's office. Silence. Not confusion, not surprise. Silence. Then in the background, Kendra hissed, Hang up. My heart kicked. Vivian's eyes widened. Mom came back colder. You have no idea what you're doing. I think I do. No, you don't. Your grandfather wanted Kendra protected. From what, a job? Elise. Why did you bring my driver's license to a notary? Another silence. Longer. Then my father's voice entered, distant but clear. Linda, stop. I gripped the phone so hard my fingers hurt. Mom said, Come home, alone. We can fix this quietly. Vivian shook her head quickly. I said, I'm not coming anywhere quietly anymore. My mother exhaled through her nose. If you humiliate your sister, don't expect this family to forgive you. That was when something inside me, something trained since childhood to fold itself smaller, finally snapped upright. You forged my name, I said. And you're asking me to worry about forgiveness? Kendra grabbed the phone. Her sweet voice was gone. You don't even need the money, Elise. I almost couldn't believe she'd admitted that much. Vivian picked up a pen and wrote rapidly on a legal pad. Keep her talking. So I did. And you do? I have plans, a family, a future. You mean the house? You always had Grandpa fooled with your little nurse act. My eyes burned, but my voice stayed calm. Kendra, were you the one who signed my name? A breath. Then she laughed, but it shook. Prove it. Vivian looked up from the legal pad and smiled without warmth. Prove it, my sister had said. Vivian underlined something on her legal pad and turned it toward me. Thumbprint, journal, call log, statement. For the first time that day, I smiled too. Kendra, I said into the phone, you should stop talking. She went quiet. My mother came back on. What does that mean? It means I have enough to call an attorney. No attorney is going to take a family misunderstanding. Vivian's eyebrows rose at misunderstanding. I looked at the forged amendment again. My name, my grandfather's money, my mother's witness signature, my sister's greed pressed into an ink pad. This isn't a misunderstanding, I said. It's fraud. My father, spoke then, close to the phone now. "Elise, listen to me. Your mother panicked." That word cut through me worse than Kendra's laugh. Panicked, not denied, not impossible. Panicked. I sank into the chair across from Vivian's desk. "Dad, you knew." Another silence. This one had a shape, a guilty one. "I found out after," he said. My mother snapped, "Gerald." "After what?" I asked. He breathed unevenly. "After the papers were filed." The room blurred for a second. All those weeks after Grandpa died, when Dad hugged me at the funeral, when he watched me cry beside the closed casket, when he let me believe the trust was still being settled, he had known. "You let them use my name." "I didn't know beforehand, but you knew after." "Elise, I tried to tell your mother this would come back. Not that it was wrong, that it would come back." I pressed my palm against my forehead. "Why?" My mother answered, icy and immediate. "Because your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly. He never understood how much help Kendra needed." Vivian mouthed, "Record?" I glanced at my phone. I hadn't started. But then my father said, "Linda, don't say anything else." Too late. My mother continued, the lid finally off. "You were always his favorite. Always. He paid for your nursing school. He let you live in his rental for nothing." "I paid rent," I said. "Below market." "I took care of him." "You made sure everyone saw you taking care of him." That did it. The tears came, but they were hot, furious ones. "You mean when I slept in a hospital chair after his bypass? When I cleaned his kitchen after he dropped a jar because his hands shook? Who was I performing for, Mom? The refrigerator?" Kendra muttered, "Here comes St. Elise." Vivian's jaw tightened. I stood. "I'm done." My mother's voice sharpened. "If you pursue this, you will destroy your sister." "No," I said. "You did that when you handed her my license." I ended the call. For a moment, the office was silent except for the rain ticking against the windows. Then Vivian said, "I know a probate attorney." By 5 o'clock, I was sitting in a conference room above a bank, across from a woman named Farah Bell, who read Vivian's sworn statement without blinking. Farah was small, precise, and terrifying in the way only calm people can be. When she finished, she looked at me. "Do you want the polite version or the real version?" "Real. Your mother is in trouble. Your sister is in trouble. Possibly your father, depending on what he knew and when. The trustee may also have liability if funds were distributed without proper verification. The trustee is my mother." Farah's pen stopped. Then she smiled slightly. "Of course she is." I handed over copies of everything: amendment, ledger note, thumbprint page, screenshots, the call memory I'd written down immediately after hanging up. Farah nodded. "First thing tomorrow, we file an emergency petition to freeze the trust assets." My chest tightened. "Can we do that fast enough? If your sister is trying to use trust money for a house, yes. We notify the title company, the bank, and the court." I thought of Kendra's white brick dream house. The porch. The curtains she'd probably already bought. Good. Farah leaned back. "Now I need to ask you something difficult. Are you prepared for your family to attack you publicly?" I laughed weakly. "They started at lunch." "No, I mean accusations. Mental health, greed, estrangement. They may claim your grandfather promised Kendra the money verbally. They may say you coerced him before the original trust." My stomach turned. Because I could hear my mother saying all of it. Farah softened a fraction. "People who forge documents usually don't stop at one lie." That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a motel near Farah's office, wedged a chair under the door handle like I was in a bad movie, and finally listened to my voicemails. The first 5 were Mom ordering me to call. The 6th was Dad whispering, "I'm sorry." The 7th was Kendra. Her voice was low, venomous. "You always ruin everything. If you think Grandpa wanted you to have that money, ask yourself why he never told you about the amendment. I stared at the wall. Then one more voicemail loaded. Unknown number. I pressed play. A man's voice said, "Ms. Warren, this is Daniel Price from Brookhaven Title. I believe we need to speak before your sister's closing tomorrow morning." I called Daniel Price back so fast I fumbled the number twice. He answered on the first ring. "Ms. Warren?" "Yes. What's happening tomorrow?" A pause. Papers shifted. "Your sister, Kendra Voss, is scheduled to close on a property at 9:30 a.m. The down payment funds are coming from the Warren Family Trust." My throat tightened. "My mother is trustee." "I know." There was something careful in his voice. "Mr. Price," I said, "why are you calling me?" "Because your grandfather was a client of my father's firm years ago. I remember the original trust structure. You and your sister were both listed. Equal shares." I sat up on the motel bed. "And today," he continued, "your mother sent us a trustee certification stating your sister is the sole beneficiary. Attached was an amendment with your notarized waiver." My forged waiver. "So I gathered from the voicemail your attorney left our after-hours line." Farah worked fast. I could have kissed her. Daniel lowered his voice. "Off the record, the document bothered me before that." "Why?" "The signature page looked too clean compared with the rest. Different scan quality. And your mother insisted no one contact you." I closed my eyes. "Of course she did," he said. "I can't give legal advice, but I can delay closing if there's a credible dispute." "There is." "Then have your attorney send formal notice before 8. At 7:42 the next morning, Farah sent it. At 8:16, Kendra called me 12 times. At 8:31, my mother texted, "You have crossed a line you cannot uncross." At 9:04, Farah and I walked into Brookhaven Title. Kendra was already there. She wore cream trousers, heels, and the furious expression of someone who had dressed for victory and found a locked door instead. Her husband, Nolan, stood beside her, looking confused and embarrassed, clutching a folder of mortgage papers. My mother sat near the window, perfectly composed except for the red blotches climbing her neck. Dad wasn't there. Kendra saw me and shot to her feet. "Are you happy?" "Not yet," I said. Nolan looked between us. "What is going on?" Kendra snapped. "Nothing." Farah stepped forward. "Quite a lot, actually." My mother's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" "Farah Bell, Ms. Warren's attorney." The word attorney landed like a glass breaking. Daniel appeared from the conference room, professional but pale. "We're pausing the closing pending court review." Kendra turned on him. "You can't do that. We have a contract." "And we have notice of alleged fraud involving the source of funds," Daniel replied. Nolan stared at Kendra. "Fraud?" "No," she said quickly. "Elise is being dramatic." Farah opened her folder and placed copies on the table one by one. The notary ledger, the note, ID presented by mother, the thumbprint record, Vivian's statement, then the screenshot of Mom texting me not to contact the notary. Nolan read them, and the color drained from his face. "Kendra," he whispered, "tell me this isn't real." My sister's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mom stood. "This meeting is over." Farah didn't even look at her. "Mrs. Warren, the emergency petition has been filed. We're requesting a freeze on all trust assets and your suspension as trustee." For the first time in my life, I watched my mother lose control in public. Her lips pulled tight. "You ungrateful little girl." I flinched, but Farah moved half a step closer to me. "Elise cared for her grandfather," Farah said. "You allegedly stole her identity." Mom's hand slapped the table. "That money would have ruined her." Everyone froze, even Kendra. My mother breathed hard, eyes shining with anger, not regret. "She would have lorded it over us just like he did. My father always used money to choose sides." I stared at her. "Grandpa left us equal shares." "He left you power." "No," I said. "You're the one who wanted that." Kendra sank into a chair. Nolan stepped away from her as if distance could protect him from the truth. Then Daniel's assistant appeared in the doorway holding out a phone. Mr. Price, judge's clerk for Attorney Bell. Farah took the call in the hall. Nobody spoke while she was gone. My sister cried silently, but I couldn't tell if it was shame or losing the house. Mom stared through me like I had become a stranger she'd always disliked. When Farah returned, she looked directly at me. The judge granted a temporary freeze. Kendra made a strangled sound. Farah continued and ordered all trust records produced by Monday. My mother's face changed, not anger this time, fear. I saw it and so did Farah. What records? I asked. Farah watched my mother carefully. Bank statements, distributions, correspondence, accounting, everything. Mom picked up her purse. I need to call Gerald. But Daniel blocked the doorway just enough to be polite. Mrs. Warren, please leave copies of the trustee's certification before you go. She looked trapped for 1 second. Then my phone buzzed. Dad, I answered. His voice shook. Elise, don't let them open the trust records. My blood went cold. Why? Behind him, something crashed. Then he whispered, because the forgery isn't the worst thing they did. Dad's words emptied the room around me. Because the forgery isn't the worst thing they did. Farah gently took the phone from my hand and put it on speaker. Mr. Warren, this is Elise's attorney. Tell me what you mean. My father sobbed once. I had never heard that sound from him. Linda borrowed against the trust before Samuel died, he said. Samuel. Grandpa. My mother lunged toward me, but Daniel stepped between us. Dad kept talking. She said she'd put it back. Kendra's credit cards, Nolan's business loan, medical bills she exaggerated, then the wedding expenses. She moved money through a household account. When Samuel noticed, he told her he was removing her as trustee. My knees almost gave. Farah's voice stayed calm. And then he fell. No one breathed. Grandpa had fallen down the basement stairs 11 months before he died. He survived, but he was never the same after. We all called it an accident. My mother whispered, Gerald, don't. Dad cried harder. I don't know if she pushed him. I don't. But they argued that morning. He told me he was calling his lawyer. After the fall, Linda said we had to protect Kendra before Elise took everything. Kendra screamed, I didn't know about that. But she didn't deny the notary. She didn't deny signing my name. The police were called from Daniel's office. My mother sat very still by the window, her purse clutched in her lap, while Kendra fell apart in pieces. First blaming Mom, then me, then Grandpa, then pressure. Nolan left without touching her. By Monday, Farah had the records. By Friday, the court removed my mother as trustee. By the end of the month, investigators found transfers totaling more than $218,000 before Grandpa's death, plus the forged amendment meant to hide what was missing by making Kendra the only person who benefited. Vivian's thumbprint record broke the whole thing open. The print matched Kendra. My mother eventually took a plea for identity theft, elder financial abuse, and fraud. Kendra took one for forgery and conspiracy. Dad wasn't charged for the forgery, but he had to testify, and the look on his face in court told me silence can age a person faster than guilt. They never proved Mom caused Grandpa's fall. That remains the dark room in the house of my mind. But they proved enough. The trust was restored as much as possible through restitution, insurance claims, and the sale of assets Mom had tried to shield. Kendra lost the house before she ever got the keys. Mom lost her nursing license review position, her standing at church, and the one thing she valued most, control of the story. For a while, I thought winning would feel clean. It didn't. It felt like sorting through ashes for things that hadn't burned. 6 months later, I moved into Grandpa's old rental, the one Mom always said I'd used him for. I paid market rent to the trust until everything was settled because I wanted no shadows left attached to my name. In the spring, I planted cinnamon basil by the back steps for him. Dad came once. He stood at the gate holding a paper bag from the pharmacy, the kind Grandpa used to bring home with gum and peppermints inside. "I should have protected you," he said. "Yes," I told him. He nodded like the word hurt. I didn't invite him in, not that day. Maybe someday forgiveness would find a place to sit between us, but I was done dragging extra chairs to tables where I had never been defended. On the anniversary of Grandpa's death, I drove to the cemetery alone. I brought cinnamon gum, a small stone, and a copy of the court order removing my mother as trustee. I sat beside his grave until sunset. For years, my family had called me dramatic for remembering details, difficult for asking questions, ungrateful for wanting the truth. But the truth had been there in ink, in a ledger, in a thumbprint, in one notary's uneasy memory. Before I left, I pressed my palm flat against Grandpa's headstone. My real hand, my real name. No one signing for me anymore. And for the first time since that dining room, I felt something inside me unclench. They told everyone Grandpa left me nothing. But what he really left me was the courage to find out who had stolen my voice and take it back. If you were me, would you have stopped at the forged signature or followed the trust records all the way? If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you want more stories like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.